become who we want to be as individuals, and at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Mark. We are less than 30 days away from NFL football, and we got a lot of shit to talk about. Mark, how you doing?
That we do, man. I'm doing well. We've officially had our first preseason game. We've got training camp full go. I'm like John said before, like literally itching. We're less than a month away, and
we got the AFC West to talk about.
We got the AFC West, which they are part of the kickoff to the season that's coming up here in 29 days. 29 days?
29 days as of us recording this. We got a good chunk of things to talk about before we get into the AFC West. But I'll start it off with this. 1, how was Chicago? 2, shout out Zach for filling in for Mark, because Mark forgot that he was going to Chicago when he committed to doing a live stream.
Correct.
So, I'll
never commit to something while live. Never commit to something while live. That's the lesson learned. I forgot I was going to Chicago. It was a good weekend. Saw a lot of good old buddies that John and I are both friends with. Went to my first Cubs game, and pretty solid weekend.
I don't follow baseball enough to know are they good this year, the Cubs?
They're on a roll right now, so the ticket prices went up and people are going to the games. I will say this, plenty of banter between me, Joe Svengros, who we've had on the show several times, Johnny, who helps out behind the scenes, a lot of banter with Bears fans that we started. Drunken.
I was gonna say like that. I haven't been to too many like live sporting events after being 21 years old, thanks to like that thing that happened that kept us inside for a few years.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get into that, especially now living in Texas, because I'm gonna make my way up to Jerry World a couple times this season, and I'm just gonna be there to piss off.
Be a banter guy. I'll tell you this, John. There's 2 ways to get in a fight in Chicago with a Chicago resident. 1, walk up to them and start flirting with their girlfriend. 2, walk up to them and say Justin Field blows. Same result. You're going to probably get some type of...
Well, that's because they're all dating Justin Fields in their head. Anyway,
that's it. I mean, the amount of times Joe said something about Justin Fields to people that he didn't even know if they were from Chicago. He just assumed, and hey, Justin Fields sucks. And all of a sudden you have a full-blown argument. He's tapping me to get into the argument, and then Johnny's drunkenly coming in and just saying stats that don't even exist. It was good.
I can just imagine Johnny just spreading misinformation.
Just spreading false, misinformation. Just none of his stats were actually accurate, but he said them with such confidence that people started to like, wait, is this guy like a genius? Like, so, but it worked. It was fun. It was a good trip. But enough of the banter with the NFC North. That's all going to play out. We've done the NFC North episode, but let's get some current events.
We're talking more.
Let's get some current events. I know there's going to be some more. There always is. It seems like for us.
This is a Detroit-based podcast. You're going to hear us talk about the Lions at least once per episode. Suck it up and deal with it. Not related to that, though. Hard Knocks airing tonight. I'm bummed that we kind of won't be able to like review it, in hindsight, but I'm stoked for it. It seems like, man, Aaron Rodgers just is like a totally new person with the Jets. From his demeanor to some of the stuff he does in practices, to the way he talks about his teammates, to the way he treats the media, all of that stuff. So
the whole thing is it's 180 of what you saw towards the end of his Green Bay situation to what he's doing right now. I mean, it's a completely different thing. And
if you're unhappy, I was going to say, like, if you're unhappy and you're as competitive as he is, it's going to take its toll on you over time. And, maybe things were a lot worse than even, like he was making them out to be, and everybody was saying he was being a baby about stuff and being a drama queen. But like, if you're pissed off and you're still staying there for year after year after year, I mean, it's going to get harder and harder to kind of, mask your true feelings about a situation. I'm
excited to see, like last year, some of those lower key guys, they always seem to highlight rookies or undrafted guys like Khalil, we had him on. He was like one of the stars of the unnamed stars of Hard Knocks last year, one of the surprise guys. Curious to see, right? We've had Conklin on. I'm curious to see how much time he gets, if they follow him at all. I'm really excited to see Sauce and Garrett Wilson's matchups and
awesome.
those two guys going at it. There's a lot of storylines that people are excited to see. I'm curious to see if it tops last year, because the Lions Hard Knocks season was one of the best we've seen, and it kind of brought Hard Knocks back because the year before was kind of slow. But this could be the best one we've seen, honestly.
I'm really excited for it. And then, quarterback came out, right? And now also Netflix is airing a
Manziel's doc came out. I think the Florida Gators one is coming out. I don't know if it came out today or it's soon. But I haven't seen any of the Manziel one. I've heard it's good. I've heard it really opens up about everything. And it's
from
real.
What it sounded like, he went through we all kind of know he went through a rough time, but these people are news stories and whatever to us in the moment, but and we've talked about this before, like they're real people at the end of the day. And Manziel's one of those guys where had the opportunity to make every little kid's dream come true and live out that dream that he probably had as a kid and all that stuff. And, partying and alcohol and all that stuff.
I mean, dude, he was 20 years old, thrown into he was one of the most famous people in the country at the time. He was partying as a 20-year-old college quarterback. He was partying with Drake, Kevin Durant. He was with some of the biggest names in the country. He was 20 years old. He just thrown into the limelight,
Yeah, and that's the thing is, obviously he wasn't ready to handle it, but still a human at the end of the day. And it seems like he's on a much, honestly, removed from football, he's on a better path now. Right?
And dead ass, I've said it before, one of the most, if not the most exciting player I've ever watched.
Oh, college, he was so fun to watch.
Period. Playing the sport, one of the most exciting guys in that short run he had was electric. The way he played, the attitude he played with, the upset wins, that kind of scrambling. I mean, we've seen quarterbacks do that before, but he did it so often, and he always made a play, whether it was with his feet or with his arm. Unbelievable plays, stuff you've never seen before. He did consistently. It was so fun to watch.
No, definitely. And then, even though we were dunking on it last week, and we will probably continue to dunk on it, but one thing they probably got right is that Patrick Mahomes is the number one player in the NFL, according to the NFL Top 100. We're going to get into the reasons why he is ranked that high, but you guys have seen it on the field the past few years. So, I don't think that's really a shocker that he was number one.
If he wasn't number one, I would have. You thought my rant with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence was bad. If Mahomes wasn't number one on this year's list, it would have been. We might have gotten our podcast banned.
Look, simply put, the dude is a leader, and he's an incredible athlete, and he is the best at his position and the best at what he does. Simple as that. So, good to see them get that right, I guess. But
they got one thing right.
Not really a surprise to anybody. All right, you cool if we hop into some Lions news, because there are a few things to talk about.
John can't help himself, guys. Listen, every episode, John will find a way to get some Lions in there, and I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it, but I'm just saying he'll find a way.
I will always find a way. So, first things first, everybody was kind of saying that the backup quarterback position was a little bit of an issue for the Lions, or a hole that they needed to fill, and who better than Teddy Two Gloves, who Dan Campbell had worked with back when he was with the Saints a few years back. Spent some time with the Dolphins after that. Now finds himself in Detroit. Probably means that Sudfeld is going to get cut. Apparently he struggled this past week. That the Giants joint practice happened today, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. So, I guess it's a welcome invitation to get, a veteran backup quarterback that's actually seen some playing time, won quite a few games, all of that good stuff. So
you call him Two Glove Teddy, which is one nickname, but I've also heard Big Dick Teddy, right? You guys can understand maybe why. Google that and you'll know why. There's a infamous picture from him from college in his Louisville uniform. But
Mark was
read that. Let the people know.
Yeah, Mark was basically begging to get a picture of Teddy Bridgewater's, Johnson on the podcast.
It's in a football uniform. It's in broad daylight. You know what I mean? It's not like it's there. If you want to see it, just Google it.
desired podcast topic.
It's a weird desired topic, but it's part of the storyline. John sent it to me. He said, I don't know if I love it. I said, I absolutely love it. I'm not going to complain about bringing in a guy with whose nickname around the league is Big Dick Teddy. Like, I'm not going to complain about it. And also, I think he's one of the better backups in the league, honestly.
Easily.
In all seriousness, he's won a lot of games as a starter for multiple teams. He's a mobile quarterback. He makes the right throws. He's been around the league for a while. I think he comes in, learns the system pretty quick, and if something happens to Goff, God forbid, I will not complain seeing him in there.
Yeah, and obviously we're not really going to see any of him this year too, but man, like Hendon Hooker even sounds like he's, he can only throw after practice basically, but dude's looking pretty competent. And so I'm really excited to see, what they end up doing with him in the future.
It gives him some time to develop, no pressure. Let him develop, let him learn the system and stuff. Let him get some chemistry with some of the guys and let Teddy be the backup guy who can bring something to the table if we need it.
So look, it's no secret here on the podcast that I am a massive CJ Gardner-Johnson fan. I have been one since he was with the Saints. He's just one of my favorite defensive players. The way he plays on field, the personality, all of that, like huge fan of it. So, he wasn't even on the Lions last year, but who was Amani Oruwariye, and he's now with the Giants. And from multiple beat reporters, we essentially heard that CJ was bullying the shit out of Amani, like all practice, basically just chirping at him on the sidelines. So one thing he said is you can't cover shit. But then some bystander apparently, posted this one where he said the reason you're no longer in Detroit is because you are soft and you lack grit. I mean, for somebody that wasn't on the team last year, this is funny as hell to me. And like this is the type of shit that he says to guys every single game, right? And football is a mental game.
This would have meant more to me, John, if it came from someone who was on the team last year, just because it's like, dude, you were my teammate last year and I'm calling you soft. But I guess it's, it's still pretty insulting. And the fact that this got out as a report is hilarious.
It's really funny. I mean, apparently him, Kirby, and Jerry Jacobs are not only like all really, really tight, like they all are pretty good buddies at this point, but they all kind of carry this like, energy with them too, which man, like if your secondary is locked in like that, that's it. I'm really, really, really hoping that it translates to the field because again, like that was such a huge liability for this team last year. We effectively get that fixed and get some dogs back there. We're in a much better spot than we were last year. And then last Lions thing, I promise, then we'll hop into the AFC West. Jahmyr Gibbs just dusting a linebacker at the joint practice today too. And man, this is what I mean. Like, obviously he should be able to outrun a linebacker, but I'm very confident they were going to use him like a receiver a lot more than people are expecting. And, I don't think people would have bitched too much if we took another receiver in the first round, given the whole JMO situation. I think this is how they're solving that liability, honestly, because he has Jameson Williams type speed, and it shows in this clip. Again, I get it's a linebacker, but like, man, linebackers are supposed to key the running back. If this is the dude they have to keep up with, this is their assignment. That's going to cause problems.
Matchup nightmare. It's a matchup nightmare. He's doing this consistently throughout camp. He's unguardable if you try to just do it with a linebacker man-to-man, which is going to cause problems for defenses because, in order to stop the run, you're going to have to play certain defenses. And if you have to go and switch to more of man looks to try to stop the run, they're going to start throwing to our running back. And I just don't know how it just makes it way harder to defend us.
Yeah, definitely. Then in non-Lions news, on the
these might be the best uniforms we've shown.
I mean,
Cincinnati,
the Browns made me lose my mind, and then so there's a lot of weird regulations around wearing your alternate helmets with your non-alternate uniforms and a bunch of other dumb shit. But the NFL apparently approved the Bengals to be able to wear their white helmets with their uniforms. You still got the orange detailing, the shoulder pad and the nameplate, but then everything else is just white and black. It looks so sick. And shout out to this Twitter account too, NFL Fashion Advice. I don't even follow them, but I'm engaging with their tweets so frequently that like I see them on my feed all the freaking time. And it's honestly like it's a good account. It's fun to keep up with, and their takes are pretty solid on
The
just
little
all alternate
orange,
unis
the
and
little
shit.
orange in this uniform is how you use your colors correctly.
So sick.
It's
It is
like
so sick.
I mean, if you're a different team, this league, take notes because Cincinnati is consistently killing everybody in the uniform game.
I mean, really, the entire AFC North, like just their alternate uniform game across the board has been pretty awesome. I mean, I don't think Baltimore's done much, but Browns, Steelers, Bengals all have really sick alternates for this year, so it'll be sweet. All right, AFC West, you ready, Mark?
Ready to roll, man.
Let's do it.
Let's watch some of the best quarterback play in the league
Yeah. So
and some of the worst.
Yeah, definitely a division that has a whole lot of diversity at quarterback when it comes to arm talent, because you have on one side of it you have Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert, who probably the two best arm talents in the league. I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody that kind of rivals
Josh Allen,
those
maybe.
two. Josh Allen,
Right.
maybe. And then you have Jimmy G, who's coming back from, it seems like, the same ankle injury he's had for like 4 years at this point. And Russell Wilson, who there are a shit ton of question marks around. Obviously, prime Russell Wilson was a different person. But current Russell Wilson, we don't know what we're going to get out of him. So we're going to have some discussions about that, kind of, what his regression was like. And look, we hated a lot last year. I'm going to do my best to not just dunk on Russ and the Broncos just for the sake of dunking on them, but also there was a lot of problems last year, and we are going to talk about those problems and not sugarcoat them. Anyways, Chiefs obviously bringing home the trophy, Super Bowl champions, 14-3, 6-0 in their division. That's nuts. Chargers 10-7, Raiders 6-11, Broncos 5-12. Going into the season, I thought all of these teams had playoff potential. The Raiders secondary ended up becoming a huge liability, and Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr clearly had beef basically since day one. They did not click, ran his ass out of town. I can't believe that Davis ended up favoring McDaniels and his regime over the quarterback that's been through thick and thin with them. But it is what it is, I guess. That's business, baby. And then obviously Broncos bringing on Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. We've been hearing for years now they were a reliable quarterback away from being like a playoff team. And their defense sure as hell plays like not just a playoff team, but honestly, they have a Super Bowl level defense. Their defense is incredibly good. And apparently Hackett and Russell Wilson were not the solution to that. They were horrible. And frankly, some of the worst football I watched this season. I'd say the top 5 worst games I watched, 4 of them probably featured the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
It was
bad.
It was bad for a lot of reasons. Horrible game management, horrible clock management, horrible play calling. Russ clearly, was not making reads effectively, very low scoring. It just, for every reason you could possibly imagine, watching that offense take the field was absolutely brutal. So we'll see how it goes under Sean Payton. And once again, shout out to Drew for putting together the graphics for us. I think his contributions have really improved the quality of these divisional episodes, so we do appreciate it. All right, so first we got the Chiefs, first we got the Chargers, my bad, playing the Chiefs in this, and I think the main thing we're trying to showcase here is just how insane Justin Herbert's arm talent is.
It's the accuracy, and you have to remember that 2 plays before this, or maybe even the play before this, he took a shot to the ribs, which we found out in the coming days that he had fractured cartilage in his ribs. And he made this throw, and I'll watch this throw 30 times with fractured ribs, freshly fractured ribs. This is one of the
hardest things. 2 plays off maybe, and no, I'm coming. I'm coming back in.
The play before, he threw a ball just into the dirt because it hurt him so bad to throw it, and I don't know what happened. He's a timeout or something. I forget exactly what happened, but this is very shortly after that. Now, I will say when we go back to the first view of this throw, the receiver goes outside. He releases outside of the defender, which right away Herbert knows that he's going to have a matchup there, but because he outside release, he knows it's going to be a tight window throw because this DB's in this trail technique. You literally cannot throw that ball any better. We're talking about an inch more inside, and the DB breaks this up. He literally cannot throw that ball anywhere. This might be the most accurate pass I've seen like the last 5 years.
It's incredible.
That is unbelievable. And the stakes were high, by the way. This was, I think it was 4th and short on this.
Yeah,
and
this game was
crunch
incredibly
time.
close.
Yeah, crunch time, games on the line, throw like that. Are you joking me? And it's only going to get better. Each clip we show of this guy and then of Mahomes, like some of this episode, if you're a quarterback fan or you're a fan of impressive arm talent, like this is the episode to watch. This is one of my favorite throws from last season.
Yeah,
the stakes and everything around
incredible.
it, unbelievable.
Yeah, and like this is literally every other fucking Tuesday for Herbert too.
Oh my God, it's so easy for him.
Last season, do you remember? I think it was a Raiders game or something like that where. Like he needed to convert 4th and long like 4 times in one drive, and he made it happen every single time. Like he's just ridiculous, and he's so clutch, like you're saying. Unless apparently it's the playoffs against the Jaguars.
Yeah, but I'm not going to completely fault him for that one. Him with Kellen Moore, I think his game will get even better.
Now, one thing to mention about this though is Staley, by all accounts, is very much in the hot seat. Yeah. So you better hope that not only do the Chargers make the playoffs, but win some playoff games this season. Or, Staley's probably out. And while I'm a huge fan of the Kellen Moore, pick for OC, and I think he's going to mesh great with Herbert. New head coaching regime usually means new assistant coaching regime. And I don't want Herbert's arm talent and his career to be wasted the same way that it was Phillip Rivers, which is, man, could just never get in the flow. But shout out to him for that massive contract that he signed.
I mean, he got paid for a reason, man. Like he hasn't necessarily won anything yet, but the talent is off the charts.
It's all there.
And he's a good dude, a good leader, one of the smarter players in the league. He's just a special guy, special talent. I mean, I'm telling you, like, it's such a joy watching these guys. We are honestly, truly so lucky to have guys like this playing every Sunday, and we get to just enjoy it.
Yep.
I mean,
it elevates the game. I mean,
look at the accuracy of some of these throws. I'm telling you, John, I think he, just in terms of making like the most difficult throws, is the best in the league at that specific thing. Where most quarterbacks wouldn't even think to go there.
Threads the needle. Like
it's a climb over route. Keenan Allen's in the right spot. A linebacker's trying to, bail into that area. Obviously can't turn his head. If he did turn his head, it would have gone right past his ear hole. The other guy's trying to come from his zone into that area, and Justin Herbert throws it again, where the only spot where that's going to be completed is where he puts it. But he does this stuff every Sunday. Like you said, every game you see a throw like, what was that? And look at the movement, right? The movement. Sees it, makes the right read, steps up in the pocket, sets his feet, and throws. And it's just scary good, man. And Keenan Allen and this receiving core with Palmer and Everett at tight end and Quentin Johnson, who they drafted at TCU, and Mike Williams. I mean, they have freaky athletic dudes, freaky size.
Not only that, I was going to say, like you got Allen, Williams, and Johnson all on the same team. Like all those dudes are what, like 6'4", 6'5", like,
and they can run.
Yeah, tall, fast receiving core that is perfect for Herbert because you have mismatches all over the freaking field, and then all Herbert has to do is place it where only they can catch it because they're taller.
And side note too, John, because of those receivers, a little fantasy insight note. We did a fantasy episode last week. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But Austin Eckler's stock has kind of gone down a little bit during this, because of the issues. He was unhappy in LA and he wanted more money, and he signed a 1-year deal. Maybe, Eckler's a guy in fantasy that I think fans can trust because he plays fantasy and he's very interactive with his fans and people that draft him. And 2, because of you saw him last year, he got his points because he was a check down receiver. He caught so many balls. And this year, I think that only becomes more of a factor because they got even better on the outside. So the only way to defend Everett and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson is to have linebacker help. And so now those guys, if they take them out of the game plan, Eckler becomes easy checkdowns for Herbert, and he's very good at doing that. Yeah. So I think his stock actually could even have a bigger year than he had last year, and he was the top guy in fantasy last year. So
yeah, I definitely think that's possible. One concern that I do have about this Chargers offense was their offensive line, not so much because they don't have the talent, but because they had a lot of injuries that they were dealing with last year. Something to keep an eye on is just the overall health of the offensive line because, Herbert can only be a stud as much as his offensive line could give him time to make these kind of insane throws that he's clearly capable of making. Slater being back and healthy will be massive for him. That's the left tackle, number 70, that you see in this video here. And they did struggle with that when he was hurt for, I think, the majority of the season, honestly. I think he was out for over half the season. So,
also, John, if you notice, if you go back to the beginning of this clip really quick, watch the right tight end. Watch how they try to block Max Crosby. This is just a testament to how good Crosby is with the Raiders. You'll see a lot of teams do this where they'll chip. So Everett's going to be the check down here, number 7.
Mm-hmm.
He chips and then becomes the check down. And they have 88. And they have 3 people blocking him on that play.
Right.
Everett chips, and then they have 2 guys. So that's just the kind of activity that he gets, the kind of looks he gets. That's a hard day to be a pass rusher and have 3 dudes you got to try to get through to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he is definitely somebody that you need to.
Yeah, clearly coaches respect it because they're scheming, this kind of pass protection.
Yeah, exactly. I think you got one more too.
Yeah,
Yep.
This may be the best of the 3. They're all so good; it's hard to tell. Again, a little pause it, John. Backtrack to when this was. This was the following game after the Chiefs game, so his ribs were not healed. He's wearing a huge rib protector. You can kind of see from different angles, and he throws this ball on the run while moving to his right, to his left, off 1 foot. And I think, John, if we want to do a little yard tracker on this and count this, you're better at math than me. But if we go from where he
throws it from the 15 roughly
off one
pulls
leg
back up. Yeah. And then that is caught on the
30.
opposite 30. So
what's your math?
Jesus Christ, putting me on the spot with that. That's like
It's fine.
60 yards.
Yeah.
60 yards.
Off 1.
That's insane.
I think it shows another angle too. It's even more impressive.
I mean, it's nuts. And again, this is what makes the NFL so fun to watch. And I know there's the longstanding debate of college and the vibes that it has and all that versus the NFL. I love watching the NFL because this is the only place where you see athletes making plays like this every single week. It is insane.
It's incredible.
Absolute superhuman ability.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, someone's grabbing him too. A defender is literally getting his hands on him while he throws this ball 60 yards off 1 foot, throwing to his left, rolling to his right. Unbelievable. You just don't see guys do this.
No.
I mean, we just showed 3 of maybe the best throws from last season, and it's all from the same dude. In terms of arm strength and accuracy down the field,
Crazy.
It's just unmatched.
And then shout out to HBD Chiefs for the short for us to take a look at.
Now, this
Maybe
isn't necessarily an
favorite.
arm strength thing. Now, Mahomes
No.
obviously has the arm strength, but what he does that Herbert maybe doesn't have is just this awareness and, just playmaking ability. You know what I mean?
He did something very similar to this in the end zone last season.
And that clip will be shown as well here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like you said, the awareness where, hey, I got to extend the play by any means necessary. And, a lot of the shit that Mahomes does, honestly, if you're an average quarterback, would get you chewed out by your coach. And he does
everything that young quarterbacks are told not to do.
Yeah.
Don't throw it, across the field. Don't throw it across your body. Don't throw no-look passes.
Right. Don't try to extend the play like that. Don't throw sidearm, all that
so
shit.
Freaky, dude. I mean, that's like if Steve Nash was playing quarterback, the no-look passes. You know what I mean? Literally just in basketball, you see that stuff all the time, but it's we're not playing basketball. We're playing football. He's a quarterback, not a point guard, and he's making plays like this. And it just seems again, with Herbert and those impressive big arm throws, every Sunday, every single game, Mahomes is doing stuff like this.
It is absolutely crazy. And here's the sidearm stuff.
Shit, dude.
The only other guy that I've seen do this as well as Mahomes does it is fucking Matt Stafford.
But Stafford doesn't do it like this, man. I mean, Stafford does it in short clips.
Yeah.
That Super Bowl 1 to Cup was really, really impressive and a huge moment. But Mahomes does this stuff more consistently accurate than anyone I've ever seen. Now, he did say he gave props in the quarterback docs to Stafford for kind of some of the inspiration, and to Rodgers and some of these other guys in Jay Cutler, some guys that have done some weird stuff like this. But Mahomes just does it better than all of them. He does it more consistent, and he does it in way more unorthodox way than any of them ever have. And I mean, that's literally what is that? Like, he's standing. That's against everything that every quarterback's coach has ever said to do.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is, like, the cool part of being so good and winning so much is that you get the freedom to kind of like experiment with all the dumb shit a little bit more because your fundamentals are so freaking good. God, and like, that's what they do is like, and Reed is a perfect coach for the Kansas City offense because
it's a match made in heaven, man.
It really is. And like, I think we've talked a decent amount about, like, the particular coach brings the best out of the quarterbacks, and it's not necessarily all about the coach or all about the quarterback. It's how they meld and fit together. Right. And like, this, as you said, Mark, it's a match made in heaven. They both have like this quirkiness, this willingness to experiment.
They believe in each other. They trust each other.
They trust each other. Like, and it totally translates to the field in ways where, if Andy Reid was drawing up all the crazy, wacky plays that he does because he's a freaking mad scientist and he didn't have a quarterback to execute, you see what happens. And then, alternatively, if Mahomes probably didn't have, some of the offensive play calling that enables him to utilize all these talents, he maybe wouldn't be, a 2x Super Bowl champ at this stage in his career.
And again, and one thing I'll give Andy Reid credit for as being one of the best play callers, and you mentioned his creativity. Not only does he create cool plays, trick plays, really interesting ways to get guys open, but the way that he manages his roster. So when he had Tyreek Hill, the way he used him was awesome, right? And then they couldn't afford Tyreek Hill, so he's gone. So they have guys like Kadarius Toney and Juju. And Kelsey's been there a lot. He's the consistent guy. But the way that they move these guys around and maximize their skill sets to pair with Mahomes' skill set is really truly a work of art. And he just does that better than maybe any play caller we've ever seen offensively. He just finds ways to get the most. Yeah, and it's not, some of these guys aren't the best in the league. I mean, Kelsey's the best in the league at his position, but Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore and Juju, they're nowhere near the top of the receivers in this league. Valdez-Scantling, nowhere near the top, but they make them effective players in big moments because, one, Mahomes ups everybody's game just like Tom Brady, and great players make everyone around them greater, right? But not only that, Reed's ability to help them get open and create plays where it's going to maximize what they do well. And it's just awesome to see. There's a reason they're Super Bowl champs. There's the reason that they have 2 rings in the last few seasons. And I think that until somebody beats them, I'm not going to bet on anybody else to win a Super Bowl until somebody beats them.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that you always attribute to great offensive play calling, you attribute it to Shanahan and Ben Johnson, is like being able to make a lot of similar stuff look different every time to confuse the defense, because it makes it a living nightmare for defenses to prepare for because they don't know what they're looking at half the time. And Reed is not only great at that from a pre-snap motion perspective, like Shanahan, like Johnson are, but man, some of the plays that he draws up are just really wacky. And then again, Mahomes' ability to extend plays and just make athletic plays. I think this is such a ridiculous example. I remember watching this live and being like out of my chair, being like, what the hell? I mean, the awareness, like the ability to recognize, like, hey, I have the ability to bait the defense to try to crash down on me because they think I'm going to try to run it in myself and then just drop it to Hilaire in the end zone. I mean, just ridiculous.
I mean, this is the play in the quarterback documentary. This is the play where he starts yelling, "I'm him." And I'm not even mad about it because he is. I mean, it's ridiculous. We've never seen anything like this. Again, he's playing basketball. He's playing basketball. He's dribbling. He's going to the hoop. Someone guards me. I'm passing it to the open guy. Like, he's just being a playmaker. There's just no one that has put together all of the pieces. The quarterback is so cerebral. We've talked about on this podcast several times before. It's a cerebral position. You got to be smart. You have to have the right approach to the game, the way you interact with teammates, the way that you respond to adversity. Like, it's all very, very important because everything's on your shoulders. He has all of that, with the God-given physical, skills he's gotten, the arm, the athleticism, the mobility. He's just a perfect package. If you could design a quarterback in a lab from his brain to his body, that's it. It's Patrick Mahomes.
And what's funny is watching him walk or jog, that doesn't really suggest how athletic he
No.
actually is.
Watching him talk, you're like, dude, is this dude a dork? But he's just the baddest dude in the league. He's special, man.
No doubt about it.
And his competitive nature really showed in that quarterback documentary. If you haven't watched it, it's definitely worth it. But his competitive nature stands out to me as well. And I didn't know he was like that, as a competitor until that show. And he checks every single box.
Just to compare these two, and again, Herbert was injured a good chunk of the season, battling that rib problem. But this was their 2022 stats, and I mean, things that jump out at you: completion percentage from both of them. I mean, obviously, touchdown to interception ratio. Mahomes had a higher number of touchdowns, but like they're both upper tier on passing yards, completion percentage, TD to interception ratio. Like it's absolutely nuts what these two guys are capable of.
Yeah. And you got to remember Mahomes played more games, but
right.
So there's a little bit of skew to it, but Herbert, I think what stands out to me, the things that stand out the most of these stats for Mahomes, it's a record year in passing yards, completion percentage, and in rushing yards and touchdowns. Unbelievable. Okay. Considering the years that he's had before. Right. And then to do all of that in one season, just unbelievable. And then Herbert, what stands out to me is the completion percentage, because that's ridiculously high. I mean, I think only Joe Burrow has a higher completion percentage than him in the league. I might be wrong on that, but he's definitely up there.
Yeah, the flirt was 70%.
The flirt was 70%. And also it's the way that they play offensively, John. The Chargers throw the ball a lot. So your completion percentage should be lower than other guys, because he's asked to do a lot.
This is not a Tom Brady offense where it's he's little dink and dunk. He is hauling it down the field, man.
But like I said, what also raises that is those checkdowns to Eckler when they do take. The thing is, Herbert's very good at not forcing the ball down the field when it's not there, and because the Chargers throw it vertically so well, you have to try to take that away. So he ends up getting these dink and dunks to Eckler, and he hits the underneath when he's supposed to. They go for it a ton on 3rd and 4th and short, and they tend to throw a lot in those situations where defensive pressure is on him, and there's not a lot of room for error. And the fact that his completion percentage is that high, given the circumstances of how the Chargers played last year and how they called plays and how they chose to go for it, is really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that these two are in the same division is a real treat for NFL fans, because we get to see these dudes have it hasn't been the most competitive of a rivalry, just because of how dominant KC has been. But to be sure, for years to come, like this is going to be a very legitimate rivalry. These two have a lot of respect for each other, and it's going to be awesome watching them play, at a minimum twice every single season. So love that shit. And then moving on to Raiders, we don't have as much Raiders and Denver film here, but we're going to work with some stuff. Raiders are going to be a very different looking team next year. And again, I feel like there's one team in each division where it's tough to pull a whole lot of film study on, because we don't really know what to expect. Their secondary is going to look completely different. Their receiving core is going to look pretty different. And, their quarterback situation, right? So no more Carr, no more Hunter Renfrow, most likely. He's still a free agent, right? Or you're trying to trade him away, something like that.
Who is?
Renfrow.
No, I think Renfro is going to be with them.
You think so? Okay,
yeah,
I've heard multiple times
practicing with them.
Got you. But then
I'd love to see Renfro trade. I'd love to see him go to a different team. He's one of my favorite receivers to watch.
Right.
But I think the biggest question too, John, is Jacobs. I mean, is he gonna come to camp? Is he gonna be involved with the team? He's threatening to sit out, obviously, because he wants his contract. You'll see, the film. They're a very different team when they're able to rely on him in the running game. I wanted to show this play a little bit of scheme wise. Great second level blocking from the receivers. Yeah. And honestly, the correction is that they did this short motion to bring that guy in to crack on the safety, and the corner who was guarding number 10 in man-to-man here needs to fold in and replace the safety as a run fit, because his guy's blocking the safety. So because he's late in doing that, you see number 26 is late in doing that, Jacobs gashes him. Great blocking on the ISO as well from the fullback. This is how you just defeat a linebacker. really, really good. And then obviously the tight end 87 does a great job sealing that guy and not letting him get inside. This is a really good, well-executed play. And then Josh Jacobs is special. He's very special with the ball in his hands. And if he doesn't play for them, I do not see the Raiders winning more than, 3 or 4 games.
And, a similar situation where, it's a bummer that, a guy of his talents who I think is still very much kind of in his prime is running into all these contract issues because he's a guy that should have, a 2 or 3 year deal that would lock him in for, the rest of his, top level playing career.
And one thing too to note with them offensively is McDaniels and Garoppolo have a history. They worked together in New England for many years. So a lot of the time that can be a very good thing. Like we talked about with Reed and Mahomes, I know a lot of people are hating on the Raiders and don't have high expectations. If they're able to figure it out a little bit defensively and they're able to get a little bit of momentum going with Garoppolo, and if they get Jacobs back and they keep Renfro, they could be a little bit better than I think people think. I think that they're getting a lot of shit in the offseason and the expectations are not high. So I do think that they maybe could exceed expectations a little bit, depending on how that situation goes with Jimmy and
my biggest concern is McDaniel, because you're right that Jimmy and McDaniels obviously have a relationship and chemistry themselves. But my biggest concern, and this is what tends to happen when Patriot coaches, go and coach elsewhere, is like somehow, some way they lose the locker room pretty quickly. And again, like a guy like Derek Carr, who's been, a rock for this organization amidst first round picks, killing people in car crashes and all of the other reasons why first round picks end up being busts, and crazy amount of turbulence at the coaching spot, whole email scandal. And Carr still found ways to win games. And so I'm just concerned that, hey man, you're getting that guy out of town after everything he's done for your organization. And you're leaning in on a guy who already seems like doesn't have a great relationship with the players. We'll see. Maybe Jimmy G is able to kind of help mend some of those relationships and help it go over a little bit more smoothly than it did last season. But like Devontae, you can tell is not super stoked on the situation. Like there's a lot of question marks. And it's a bummer because I thought the Raiders, like I said, were probably going to be a playoff team last season with the way that they worked in their offseason. And it might have been better that they, hired Bisaccia as a head coach. But
yeah.
Is there winning?
I mean,
I'll take it back.
I'll say this too, John. Mahomes, Herbert, Russell Wilson, those guys don't like playing against Vegas because although the secondary wasn't very good, that pass rush is a bitch. And they drafted
their front seven,
and they only got better. And they drafted Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech to go hand in hand with Crosby. And they're not fun to try to block, and they're not fun to try to escape. So that's one strength that they have going for them. And listen, if you get pressure on the quarterback, you can really alter games, and you can really alter how guys like Mahomes and Herbert play.
Yeah,
and that's how you can beat those guys.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
The
very few times we've seen Mahomes lose games, he's been running for his life.
Yep.
Like in the Super Bowl against Tampa, he was running for his life, and that's really the only way you can limit him. If he's comfortable, he's going to torch you.
Yep. And I mean, really, with the exception of the Broncos, that is a huge point of investment for all three of these teams, is to make sure that they have as good of a defensive line as possible to make sure that the superstar quarterback is doing what, or is just as highly uncomfortable. So, and look, I've said this 1,000 times. Anybody that watches the podcast knows my stance on this. Like, trenches is how you win games. Defensive, offensive line, you dominate, you win. I'm very confident with that. And I think
the quarterback stays pretty, John, expect a lot of gritty. You know what I mean? Expect a lot of touchdowns.
All right.
Just came up with that on the spot.
Yeah, I think Drew needs to clip that.
Trademark.
Gritty. Expect some gritty. Got it. All right.
A
guy that I feel like, no, I liked it. I thought.
Do you mean it?
I mean it. Because that's like the main touchdown celebration. I like it.
All right.
I like the gritty.
I respect it. I'm gonna get a bunch of hate on it. You might like it. I know I'm gonna get made fun of for that one.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I don't give a shit.
You should gritty into. Speaking of, a great segue. You should gritty into taking the ACT. Like when you walk in the room.
I'll gritty when I get a 36 on your head. I And I'll
Have
get
you
it.
signed up yet? When's the deadline?
I got a lot of shit going on right now.
I know. I don't care. I
but
got to
yeah,
keep
the
the
next
press.
one's
I
in
have to keep.
September.
I know you keep saying the next one's in September. That's what I heard about whatever one in the spring, and then you missed the sign-up deadline. When's the sign-up deadline?
That I don't know. I know the next test is in September, so the sign-up deadline is not for a while.
No, it probably is coming up pretty shortly because September is like 6 weeks away, like mid-September. Like let's not
could be.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come on. I need like a commitment on your end here.
I can't commit to things live anymore because last week I forgot I was going to Chicago.
Okay, but you committed to a bet, and
that
you should be a man of your word.
That I did.
All right. If you miss the September deadline, we have to like double up on the punishment somewhere or another.
I'm not taking the ACT twice, if that's what you're implying.
No, but like you can maybe do it in a clown suit or something. So because that's what you are.
I think I think I'd rather do that than wear one of your Slayer shirts, whatever you're going to send me in.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty good too. Hey, at least it's not a stinky jersey because that was pretty brutal as well. So
yeah.
Anyways, look, we have a lot of issues with the way that the Denver Broncos play offensive football, but man, if their offense was just okay last season, they would have been a damn good team because their defense, namely their secondary, namely Patrick Surtain, is really, really, really good. I would say he did not get enough credit. He is probably a top 3 cornerback in the league. So,
he's really just good with his hit. I mean, this is one of the hardest routes to cover. This is a corner comeback. So Ayuk, and one of the best route runners in football, John, you've highlighted him as a kind of a riser, stock riser, and fantasy stock riser in all terms of just the position. But a corner comeback, probably, I put it up there with one top 2-3 hardest routes to cover in this situation. And Surtain just locks it up here. I mean, this is film study. He reads the hips, he matches the pad level, he gets out of his break really well, and then he's able to continue to finish through the first tip to make sure he doesn't catch it on the second attempt. So just a really good job. Jimmy G puts this ball like right where it needs to be. You know, it's not like it's a bad throw. It's the right read. This is just absolutely better play.
He can lock down any receiver.
We've shown him lock up Devontae Adams.
Yep.
We've shown him do this against the Chargers guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. We've seen him guard bigger receivers. He's special. And I think he's going to be around this league for a long time as one of the better guys. With all the hype that Sauce Gardner and some of these guys get just for they're more flashy, they're more arrogant, like Jair Alexander. You know, his clips are going viral for how he interviewed in the NFL top 100 list. Very, very cocky. And you have to be to play this position, but it's the way Surtain plays, he doesn't get as much media attention. His personality is just not as big. But yeah, I'll tell you what, his play is.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And here's another one.
He just does a really good job at the small details of the position.
It's right here. Sorry.
Again, that's another corner comeback. That's the same route that Ayuk ran on him, and he breaks it up again. I mean, it's hard to cover that route, really hard.
I'm trying to find him on this play too.
I think he's up at the top.
Yeah, I think he's top here. Yep.
Again, that's what I mean. Guarding those bigger receivers, like, very hard to do. This is a well-thrown ball. Keenan Allen's a bigger dude. Herbert puts this one where he can get it, and he just plays it well. He just plays it very, very well. Back shoulder is very hard to defend as well, and he did it there. Doesn't consistently. But he's just so consistent for them on the defensive side of the ball. Their pass rush is actually underrated, which helps him out, which helps the secondary out. But yeah, as you said, as a defensive unit, they're one of the best in the league, and they just need some help offensively, and they're going to be a team, again, one of those teams that could win more games than people are expecting. Based on, I think here's the thing with the Broncos and the Raiders are in similar situations where the expectations are not high because of how bad it was last year for them. But I think more people are talking about Denver being better because of Sean Payton. When in reality, I think that the Raiders might be the team that improves more than Denver because I believe more in Jimmy G and McDaniel's chemistry than I do with Russell Wilson and Payton.
Yeah, there's definitely question marks there. I mean, look, Sean Payton has found ways to coach a team to success pretty much despite, any and every piece of adversity they face, including Drew Brees getting hurt. But the thing is that at the end of the day, right, we talk about how important quarterback coach chemistry is. Like Peyton and Breeze truly understood each other and were able to execute that offense, as pretty much a single unit. And there's absolutely no guarantees that Wilson and Peyton will have that same chemistry. So I agree that there's question marks there. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't make it work. I think that it's definitely possible, but I 100% agree with you, Mark, that it's not like a shoe-in by any means, right?
No.
I mean, we've seen Sean Payton be a successful coach with one quarterback, period.
Yeah.
Like
and I mean, this is a tough division, and they have a tough schedule, and he's already starting to dig himself a little bit of a hole with how he was handling, how he was speaking about Hackett publicly, and he's kind of put a target on his back. Sean Payton is not the most likable guy in the world, clearly. When I posted that short about those comments, a lot of people were saying Sean Payton is not a good dude, not a likable coach, no respect for him. And
yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that because you did say he's usually a class act, and people were like, "What the hell were you talking about?" So,
exactly.
And look, I mean, I have my own biases as a guy that likes watching the Saints, but I digress. Well, now one thing that is not Sean Payton's fault is Russell Wilson's progression on this particular play and how you miss this wide open route is just so brutal. I mean, and like these are the mistakes in the red zone that were all over the place. Broncos fans know all this stuff way too well because it is just so brutal. This was probably the worst game I watched all season, this Broncos Colts game. What was the other one that was really bad that like damn near 0 points got scored? It was like by a field goal.
With the Colts, I think.
It was Colts. But who did they play? Or it was just
Colts Broncos, and then there was another one that was really bad.
Colts something else. Yeah, that was brutal.
The main thing on this play too, John, is like, and you talk about like chemistry with the play caller on this play. Like when they get this certain look pre-snap, he looks one way based on what he's seeing, and especially down here in big plays like this where it's fourth down and you need to score, you need to get the first down. The defensive look tells him to look left first, which he looks right first. And then when he sees the guy in the middle of the field, the safety right on the Broncos right underneath the goalpost, he flies left. So
it just locks on.
It's a no-brainer the second that that's where Russell Wilson's eyes are supposed to be, is on that guy. He's the whole player. He's the guy in the middle. He's the help defender that's kind of reading Russell's eyes anyway. And so the second he sees him fly left like that, it's a no-brainer. You go to KJ Hamler on the slant. It's not a hard read. This is like we do this play at Adams, like where I coach high school football, and our quarterbacks can execute it, and they're 16 years old. So this is just Sean Payton ain't fixing this. Sean Payton ain't the one on the field making this read, making this throw. So he can call, and it was a good play call. This was a good play call for that situation. And this is just the quarterback. He's not under pressure. He's not getting sacked.
Aaron Rodgers makes this play in his sleep 1,000 times in the red zone.
Most quarterbacks do. John, Russell Wilson wasn't bad last year. He was horrible. He was really bad. Let's pull up.
We have the stats to back it up.
But he was a bottom 33 quarterback. Like he was worse than. I don't even think he was a top 32 guy.
Yeah, the only two people that had a worse completion percentage than him were Justin Fields and I think like Carson Wentz or something like that. Like not company that you want to be in. 16
passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 55 sacks as a mobile quarterback who's known for scrambling and making plays with his feet his whole career prior. And it's not like he's too old where he can't do it anymore. He's in great shape. He works out, treats his body right. He should absolutely still be able to do that. And to have the most sacks, I'm not putting that on the offensive line. A lot of that is on him. And then the QBR, 36.7 QBR. 36.7. That is horrible.
Really, really, really bad. I mean, look, they cleared house on the offensive line. So we'll see. Obviously, they got blamed for the sacks. But, I mean, watching those games, Russ would hold the ball like crazy. He would, like you said, try to act like a mobile quarterback. He clearly gained weight and did not have that mobility that
he was never comfortable. He was never comfortable in the system with.
He wanted to bail from the pocket all the time.
Yeah, because he's not. You compare him and Aaron Rodgers' game, it's very different. You compare him, and this is what scares me. and I've said this before, you compare what Aaron Rodgers is as a player with Hackett, it works. You're looking at back-to-back MVP seasons, great numbers, one of the best quarterbacks in the league in those runs. He comes over to Denver. He pairs up with Russell Wilson. Their games, his game with compared to Aaron Rodgers is very different. It didn't match. But guess what Sean Payton's offensive game plan was in New Orleans for so many years? Very similar to Hackett's offensive game plan. Very similar to that system for quarterbacks. And guess what? Drew Brees, not exactly the most mobile guy in the world.
Yeah, and you were right because you corrected me on that, and you were totally right. Like the only comparison between Wilson and Breeze is really their stature.
Yeah.
Their style as quarterbacks are not alike whatsoever.
So
I mean,
Russ
has always been like, a more mobile guy, and he likes to target the edges, the hashes of the field.
He's never been a great pocket passer.
No. And so I'm curious to see what happens there. If they're because the problem is what if they try to force Russ into being that and he still just refuses to be that because that's not where his comfort zone is? That's going to cause problems. So it's definitely a tough situation. And man, in hindsight, like again, the Seahawks, we thought they were, shooting themselves in the foot. They made out with highway robbery on that trade. They are totally reloaded and ready to go. And that's exactly what Pete Carroll said it was going to be. It was not a rebuild. It was a reload. They have used that draft capital that they got from this trade so wisely. I mean, their receiving core is disgusting. Their defensive backfield is disgusting. Like and the Broncos now have to throw money at everything to try to solve these problems, paying Sean Payton some of the most that head coaches have ever gotten in the league, paying Russell Wilson an insane amount of deal, giving away all the draft capital that you did to acquire Russell Wilson. Like it's tough because now, like a lot of times when teams sell out like this, they're like, okay, Super Bowl or bust. They sold out like that, and they're just trying to get a winning record, right?
It's incredible.
It's really tough, and I feel bad for Broncos fans because
and you could see tough. The over/under totals is, it's pretty freaking high for Vegas and for Denver. It's 6.5 for Raiders, 8.5 for the Broncos, 9.5 for the Chargers, and 11.5 for the Chiefs. I look at those first two teams. I'm going under on both of those, John. I'm going to go over for the Chargers and for the Chiefs.
I have the exact same. Raiders, I think, are a 5 or 6 win team. Broncos, I think, are a 6 or 7 win team on a good day. And yeah, Chargers, I could see them getting 10 wins, and then Chiefs, I think there'll be another 13, 14 win here. Like I mean, the Chiefs, hardly anything has changed for them. They'll be just fine. I think the Chargers will be greatly improved. But yeah, lots of questions around the Broncos and the Raiders. Hey, we'll see. Maybe Sean Payton fixes this. Maybe it's like a cultural thing. I'm not sure. All I know is that there's a lot that needs to get fixed for the Broncos. And it could be culture. It could be Russ. It could be offensive line. I'm not sure, but they have a lot of shit they need to figure out. They need to figure it out quickly.
It's not an easy division too, where you're like, oh, well, we have a few bad teams, some younger guys that we're going against. Like, no, you're in one of the better divisions in football with 2 of the top, 4 quarterbacks in football. And you better figure it out quickly because it's not very forgiving for Sean Payton and for Russell Wilson. I'm curious to see, John, what happens if this season is bad, like I think it's going to be for them. Is it Payton that goes, or do they find a way to get rid of Wilson? Because they already blamed Hackett for last year. And
they locked Wilson in for what, a 3-4 year deal?
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know. No, he has no trade value.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, nobody's going to want to touch him.
But you can't keep starting him if he plays even remotely close to what he played like last year, which I think he'll be slightly improved, but I don't think he's going to do miracles.
Broncos fans better pray to God that Peyton is at least able to get you close to 500 this season, because you're right. I think it's going to be a world of hurt if, him or Wilson is out the door next year. I mean, it's going to be right back into the cycle that Broncos fans have known all too well since their Super Bowl win, which is just not being able to get it going on offense under basically any circumstances. So look, that's our AFC West episode. If you're, familiar with how this format has been working, guess what team or division we're covering next week? It's going to be the NFC West. So that's going to be a fun one because kind of similar to this division, there are 2 teams that are really freaking good, and there are 2 teams that have a whole lot of question marks and are going to probably, if I had to guess, finish close to the bottom of the league next season. So That will be a fun one to look forward to next week. Look, we posted a blockbuster fantasy football episode last week. So if you have not checked that out and you play fantasy football, I would recommend you check it out. I think Mark and I put a lot of work into that, and I think it ended up being some pretty quality content. We have a Discord. You should definitely go check that out. If you are on Discord and you like being a part of football related communities, you should come join ours, join the conversation. And if you haven't liked or subscribed or commented yet watching this video and you've made it to the end, what the hell are you doing? Like, come on, like, give us our flowers.
At least
here.
roast me for something in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, like all
a lot of
interaction is good
roastable stuff in
interaction.
this episode. A lot of roastable, things that I said and you said.
Yeah.
It can't just be John roasting me and me roasting John. Like there's so
get
much
in the
more.
comment section and tell us how we don't know what we're talking about.
Also, check us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,
All that
YouTube
good
Shorts, all that stuff. We post a lot of short form content. A lot more of that coming as we get more into the season, and once we're full go in the season, like a lot more content. So you definitely want to check it out. We appreciate everyone that's listening and everyone that tunes in, and we definitely appreciate everyone that does follow, like, subscribe, and comment. We love you the most.
Sure. We are working hard to keep growing the channel so that we can keep doing more and more cool shit. So distract us from our day jobs. Keep supporting. We really appreciate it. We will see you guys with the NFC West next week. Peace.
See you guys.